Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here on the Raymond Hall Show. I am your host, Raymond Hall, and it is good to be in the studio. I was laid up in the VA hospital last week, and I got a number of calls that wished me well and speedy recovery, and I want to tell you that your prayers worked because in that short period of time, I am right here. Joining us in the studio today, we have got a service kind of day. This is very odd. You have 3 Marines with you today. We have Mr. Josh Sneed, who was in the Marine Corps, and he is the captain of the Salvation Army Long Beach.
That's correct.
Center. Mm-hmm. Okay, to make sure I got that right. And also we have Mr. Richard Woods Jr., who was appointed Veterans Commissioner by Councilman Cedric in the city of Carson. So all of us served in the active service of the U.S. military. Our branch of service was the United States Marine Corps. And I'm saying it's a service kind of day because I had one of the most interesting experiences. Generally, we reserve the commentary to the end, but I want to give you this at the beginning because it's going to set the stage for what we're talking about. The VA has some rooms are partitioned. You have many, and when you go into the ER, you know, you have several veterans in there, but you can't see each other because it's partitioned.
Partitioned off.
Partitioned off.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so I could only hear this man, and he told me, he didn't tell me, but this is what he was saying. He said, "No one ever told me thank you." And some voices are just distinctive. I could tell that he was senior in years, and I could tell that he was having some challenge. And like just by the conversation, the youngsters call it ease. It's not ease dropping like they said when we were younger. They call it something else. But I was listening to him, but I couldn't see him.
Right.
And he talked about how all of his life nobody never told him thank you. And I heard this voice say, "Well, Daddy, I tell you thank you all the time." And he said, "No, I know you love me, but that's not what I'm talking about. Nobody ever told me thank you." And I thought about how they told me that for all of us combat Marines, which is all of us, that there are 9 or 10 support people that's behind us.
Support
people,
each
individual troop.
Absolutely.
There's 9 or 10 people back there doing the things.
Corpsmen, logistics.
Yeah,
all
logistics, all those kind of
gives
things.
him the tools that he needs to go out.
Right.
Yeah.
So this young man, I just remembered that because we all have seen the drivers of the Red Ball Express. We've always seen the guys who drove those big B-52s and the Tuskegee pilots, and we've already seen, but we never ever paid attention to the people that kept those planes and those trucks going.
That's right.
Okay, so it just registered to me that he was one of those people that never really was in the group of people that said, "Thank you." So his daughter walked past me, and I talked. So of course I struck up a conversation with her, and she told me her dad was 97 years old, 96 and a half.
Okay, World War II.
World War II, exactly. His name was Mr. Joe Freeman Sr. He received 2 Bronze Stars for service of valor.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so I wrote this text and sent it to her, and she read it to him, and she said that it just brought him so much joy and everything, and he asked to hear it several times.
Oh, nice.
Then she texted me the next day and told me he had passed.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay. So, Mr. Joe Freeman Sr., wherever you are.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
For a nation that is at rest and secure because of your service, we thank you. For working 37 years with no day off, and for 5 of those years you worked 2 jobs in that 37 years with no day off. Thank you. For continuing to work in your community and to start companies, some of which are still in business today, and employing people through those jobs you started. Thank you.
Thank you.
For being a hand of care and a leadership to some, and just a person that others could talk to, we thank you.
Yeah.
if I but may be able to speak just for 1 second for a grateful nation, we, the nation, your community, Mr. Joe Freeman Sr., you stood your post and you stood it well. You gave others an understanding of what service is about.
Yes.
So we thank you.
Thank you for being a good example and someone who truly gave. Right. That's the lifestyle we each need to adopt. That's the one thing we need to have in common, is that willingness to serve and to give to others. That's the fulfillment of life's purpose.
Yes, it is.
It really touched me. It just really touched me. I resolved one more time that I didn't know whether I was sick and needed to be there, or whether the good Lord had just said, I need you to be here so you can hear this, so you can say thank you, because he never heard thank you. I didn't know.
Oh, he needed you in that moment. You were ready.
Yeah. You know, just to hear someone say at 96 and a half, 97 years, I've never heard from my country,
Wow.
thank you. It's a service kind of day here at the Raymond Hall Show, and we're going to be talking about just that. We're going to be talking about service because Captain Sneed has an impressive bio, and so does Mr. Woods here. You know, service is a strange kind of thing. You can be sitting at a table in one place, and service will just come upon you, you know. So you were serving, you were on the East Coast. You lived on the East Coast.
Grew up in the East Coast.
Grew up on the East Coast,
My only experience back there with Salvation Army was thrift stores.
Okay.
I had no idea what the Salvation Army was all about.
Okay.
It was after I joined the Marine Corps and was stationed at Camp Pendleton is when I first met someone from the Salvation Army who invited me in. He called it Christianity with its sleeves rolled up. And that concept really appealed to me.
Right.
You know, even my enlistment in the Marine Corps, somewhere in my mind I thought I would be helping. I would be doing something valuable. And I just, at that time, wasn't receiving the kind of fulfillment of service that I really needed.
Right.
As soon as I got connected with the Salvation Army and realized I would have direct access to people who don't know where to go next, who don't know where the resources are, who don't know how to help themselves out of whatever rut they got stuck into, I found out that the Salvation Army gave me access to those kind of people and the ability to step in and say, hey, here's what we can do for you. Here are some people who can help you with housing or with utilities or with just plain being a part of a community that will love you and look after you. That was 22 years ago, you know, and I haven't left the Salvation Army since. I've been around. I've seen a lot of service in the Salvation Army, responded to Ground Zero shortly after the terror attacks, served in Houston for a few weeks after Katrina. So, I mean, that's, you know, one extreme of service, and the other is driving a 70-something-year-old man to church Sunday after Sunday after Sunday for 5 years and spending that kind of one-on-one time with somebody who needed an ear. He needed somebody to listen to him. So, you know, the Salvation Army saved my life in that it gave me an opportunity to find places that I could serve.
Yeah. I think we all have been aware yet unaware of what the Salvation Army really does. We know that there's the centers, the thrift centers, and beyond that, we know that the Salvation Army is there in time of emergencies and that kind of thing. It was really impressive, especially the bottom part of your resume, reading about your current commitment is to seniors,
right,
and working with the senior community.
That's right.
Yeah, he is a part of the family for community and senior services. Because he's often there, and anytime you come more than once, we just consider you part of the family. if you can put up with us more than one meeting.
More than one meeting.
Okay, he'll fit.
He'll fit in.
Yeah, so we are so very happy to have you at the meetings and all of the things that
I enjoy it.
do.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's when life kind of throws a curveball at you.
Mm-hmm.
You get a chance to decide how you're going to respond to it.
Right.
So 5 years ago, I had an accident at home where I broke my neck.
Mm-hmm.
I was paralyzed very briefly,
Mm-hmm.
but it led to chronic pain, some neurologic damage, and
Mm-hmm.
just some kind of overall life trauma. And I didn't know what to do with that experience for the first few years.
Okay.
But with some advice from some wise people, I took it as an opportunity to kind of redirect, to start fresh, to go out and learn about a new kind of service. And that's what led me to taking over a ministry at Leisure World and getting involved there. And it just one thing led to another. And it's, serving the older adult population, it's new to me. I still have a lot to learn. One thing I've learned recently is that 10,000 Americans a day are turning 65. So this is an area of service that I think is underrepresented at the moment and really needs people who will commit themselves to serving social needs, attending to medical concerns, advising people on the effects of alcohol now that you're older and now that you're on certain medications.
Right.
It's different. Drinking is different now. So, a little happy hour isn't the same today and increases the risk of falls.
Right.
Falls is the number one issue affecting the older adult population.
Absolutely.
And, just getting involved in that world, like I said, it's new to me. There's a lot to learn. And I know that this is perfect for me right now.
Right.
And if it weren't for the accident, I wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be here, yeah. We are focusing, everybody's focusing now on the homeless, those who are unsheltered here in Los Angeles.
Yes.
In county. And the senior population is growing as well. Seniors at one time was pretty stable, but now because of the housing situation, people are redoing units, and the seniors are being displaced, and they cannot afford to come back to those units, which is causing a problem with the seniors. And it complicates when you are talking about seniors. It's complicated. Some of the seniors have their driver's license removed, and they're just not accustomed to calling those companies that move you around. They're not strangers. You call a stranger to come and take you somewhere. They're not really comfortable.
It's really becoming a huge issue for the city of Carson. We've had a special city council meeting to address the homeless population. We have the Mayor Robles has set aside committees to study the homeless population. We have them where they are living along the railroad tracks.
Yeah. Now, before we get into that, though, give us. We were talking yesterday, and we had this just like we were supposed to meet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got started. Give us a little your background, your bio.
Okay, my name is Richard Woods, and I was born and raised in Beaumont, Texas. Critter Land, I called it. Okay. But anyway, I went into the Marine Corps in 1966, May 12th, 1966. I was 18 years old. Okay, I did 4 years. I was in Vietnam of all of 1968 with the 3rd Marines, and places like Hue and Phu-Bai, and I had a stint up at Khe Sanh. Okay, but after getting out of the Marine Corps, I came back here to Los Angeles, and I started working in aerospace. Okay, I worked for McDonnell Douglas for many years.
So you worked there like 30 years or something
Yeah,
in
well,
the whole industry.
Well, I actually for about 10 of those years I worked with McDonnell Douglas. Then then I went over to Northrop Grumman, where I retired in 2008. Okay. After my
So how did you for time purposes, how did you get involved in the service part of helping veterans and those kind of things? How did you get involved?
Basically, it as you say, faith has a way of doing everything. I would have probably still been working as a machinist if I hadn't had I haven't had an artificial knee, and I had been going and having the knees drained all those years and stuff, and the doctor had told me that I had about 2 or 3 more years, and I was either going to make a decision to retire because my knee was torn up. I couldn't be getting up and down on those machines. So I went on and retired, okay? And once I retired, I was thinking about just kicking back. But as fate would have it, I went through some issues with PTSD, and I also got involved with. I was also spent some time out at Long Beach VA. Long story short, a year and a half ago, a young man. Well, I say a young man. He's young for me. We had an election in
the city of Carson,
the
right?
city of Carson.
Local election.
Okay, we had our local election. I was in the house, and I came out to go to my car to pick up something, and there was this caravan of cars coming down. Have you ever seen with the posters and everything like that of the person that's being put in for office? You know, and at that point I didn't know who Cedric Hicks was. I actually the car stopped, and this young man asked me, "Are you going to vote for me?" And I said, "Who are you?" Okay, I always vote, but I had not. And had an opportunity to read up on his bio or anything like that. But anyway, what really grabbed us was the individual that was with him saw my sticker on the back of my truck, and it said Vietnam veteran. And the conversation started. He was a Vietnam veteran. Okay, he was also from Beaumont, Texas. His name was Broussard. My first wife's name was Broussard. We got to talking, and Cedric was just standing there like, I'm the one running for office. Why are you talking? Okay,
right.
But anyway, as we continue to talk, Cedric asked me again. He said, "If I win the election, will you come and be Veterans Affairs Commissioner?" And I'm saying, "Yeah, whatever. Just go ahead. Let me finish this conversation."
Yeah.
The election went off the next day, okay, which must have been that Tuesday or something. He won the election. The following day, I heard a knock on the door.
Right.
And I went to open the door, and there he was standing outside.
That's how you got to be a commissioner.
And he said, "Do you remember what you told me day before yesterday?"
Right.
And I said, "Of course I do." He said, "Okay, I'm going to put your name in, and I want to swear you in as a commissioner for the City of Carson Veterans Affairs."
Okay.
That's what.
All right.
As simple as that.
Perfect.
Well,
Perfect.
we are so thankful that all of that happened, and I think all of us here at the table know about PTSD.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I make no bones about it. They gave me 70% rating for PTSD, and 100% for my heart. But here's the thing that I found. Now this is just me for mine.
Okay.
I don't minimize, marginalize, or even try to look at anyone else's situation. That situation for everybody is different.
Each individual.
We're losing veterans behind PTSD. That young man that was shot, that just wanted them to let him go back to school, and he just flipped out. He was service connected for PTSD.
PTSD, yeah.
And he lost his life. So one of the things that I say to everybody, to all the vets, and I mean it, we're separate, we're different, because we're commendable.
That's
Now, I mean,
a good point.
Yeah, you want to laugh?
Yeah.
Think of someone giving you a rifle and telling you to go all the way around the world.
Oh, no.
You don't have leave your family. You don't have a place to sleep. You got to carry it on your back.
That's
okay,
right.
You got to carry your water, your food.
We get that mindset drilled into us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we're going to pay you a little bit of money.
Very little.
Okay. And if you do something we don't like, we're going to take that back.
You're going to take
That's
that
right.
back.
Yeah. Okay. So it takes a special person.
It does. Absolutely takes a special person.
Be a part of the active service, and it takes an even different kind of person to be a United States Marine.
Yes, it is.
Because it does start with a code
Oh, that's right.
that you must have.
Honor, courage,
Courage, commitment.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Study Marine Corps history. I really loved the Marine Corps history that we were taught in boot camp.
That's right.
You learned so much about those that have gone before you and what a tradition you had to uphold. And for a young man, 18 years of age, knowing that you had this responsibility that so many others that landed on Iwo Jima and everything during the World War II, all that stuff, now it's on your shoulders to carry that out.
Yeah. Well, my that's a very good point. My point is real simple. That I invite everybody. We're talking about PTSD, and you talk to cats that worked on very expensive equipment or planes or served in a number of ways, and when we return, one of the things that no one talked to us about, you found your path.
Right.
You found your path, but nobody really talked about make sure you stay on your service path.
That's right.
We're just going to discharge you from active military service, but you need to stay on your active service path. Okay.
So now you have someone with that military mindset, and they're out there in a different world.
Right.
Right.
And
absolutely.
the rules are a little bit different.
A lot
Right,
different.
Right. But if you look on your discharge, you'll see something that's not there. I know that's a conundrum, but I shared it with you the other day. If you look on your discharge, that you will see something that's not there. And what's not there is that you never were discharged. You were discharged from active military service.
Right.
You were never discharged from service. We just put on a different uniform.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's what I
So
did.
when I run to cats, because I was the same way, I just, I'm done. Leave me alone. I won't talk about what I was drinking at the time, but that because I couldn't figure it out. So let me just stop the pain. And when I go to the VA, they couldn't figure it out. Well, you done went to college. Your life is good. And, so what I simply say is just be of service. Continue on the service path. And when you continue on the service path, your life just really gets better.
You need some kind of a catalyst for your fresh start, right?
Yes.
And it's not always going to be something like a huge accident that causes you to re-examine. Sometimes it's simply discharge from active service, right? And I think that with that rate of suicides that we see in former military members, I think what we're seeing is people who haven't been able to make that connection into continuing their service.
Yes.
And if I could just, brag for one moment, the Salvation Army operates a place called Bell Shelter. You can look it up. It's a shelter for men and women. It's the largest homeless shelter this side of the Mississippi.
Wow.
And one of the areas that they have really improved their services is in PTSD management, confrontation. There's this, device that they use and a whole procedure for helping people with PTSD work through some of that and get themselves, able to find that new, fresh start.
Yes.
And it's a huge work. Right? And I really think that one of the key elements to that is promoting interactivity with other people, promoting the ability not just to be on a bus with other people or in a room with other people, everybody on their phones, right?
Right.
And not just experiencing an activity together like watching a movie together or going to a ball game together, but finding ways to promote true interactivity where you're focused on one another and building relationships. It's an area of service in teaching people how to have this interactivity that doesn't get a lot of credit because you can't fund interactivity, right? It's not a bumper sticker concept, right?
Right.
But if you look at it, it's what people are searching for. Is connection with other people. And the power of interactivity to confront PTSD, just other issues of self. The power of that is phenomenal.
Yes, yeah. And now you all have some events that go on in Carson every year.
Yes, we do. We've just completed, as far as the veterans, we have several commissions in the city of Carson. Okay, but the one that I'm involved in is the Veterans Affairs. We just completed our Memorial Day celebration, where we celebrated a lot of veterans.
We got that.
We got that. All right.
We appreciate that. I was interested in that Veterans Voice that you talked about. Tell us something about Veterans Voice.
Veterans Voice is not actually connected with the city of Carson.
I know.
Veterans Voice was a group 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. The mental health department at the Long Beach VA. I was referred to a program by my doctor, Dr. Keith McNagny. It's like meditation classes, and people with PTSD that's in the Long Beach VA, they have programs. They have different programs that they assign to people that are suffering with PTSD. And in this program that I was in, which is a meditation program, it's like a yogurt or whatever where you meditate and stuff like that. I met another individual. His name was Leo Mendez. Leo was in the Army, okay, and he was also in Vietnam. Leo was in a unit that rescued me during the time that I was stranded in Wade during the Tet Offensive. And we got to talking, and he wanted to start a group to help the veterans at the Long Beach VA. He wanted to help people coming in dealing with PTSD. If you're dealing with PTSD, unless you get a good doctor that puts you in these different programs, because the VA is not going to do it. You have to have somebody to guide you to the programs. And being in the mental health department, we knew the programs that worked. And what we did was we formed a group called Veterans Voice.
Okay.
And Veterans Voice, what we do is we work in the different pods. We walk the halls of the Long Beach VA. We greet people that's coming in, because it's overwhelming if you don't know where you're going. And if you're suffering with PTSD, you're really going to get lost. Yeah. And what we do is we try and guide these individuals into different programs. Okay, we try and help them to get to apply for their different benefits. We try and get them. We work with the Fisher House. The Fisher House is a building up there where they probably don't know if they're getting treatment at the Long Beach VA and they live over 60 miles away. Their family could stay at the Fisher House for free. Well, it's like the Ronald McDonald House.
We did some research on it, and what caught my attention was one of the things where it says that it helps to give veterans voices, that they can get their voice on some things. One of the things that's important is that they get an understanding to the worth of their contribution of service. Right. So they will have an understanding of why it's important to continue in that service.
It's like where we started. Yeah. Letting somebody say, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And validating the heart of service that they have already expressed.
Right.
When, like you said, they're lost and unsure of where to start.
Where to start.
Intervene right there in that moment.
Right.
There's
get
great
them
power
get them
in that.
started. We're all soldiers. We know
That's
how to
right.
take orders,
Mhm.
but we need someone to tell us
Yes.
where to go.
Well, it's a balance.
Mhm.
I met a young man that told me, he said, "Man, I'm a master sergeant." No, you're not. You're a veteran.
You're a veteran.
There's no master sergeant veteran. There's no.
Not in the outside world. Not a master sergeant. Not in the outside world. In the military, yeah.
No, there's no master sergeant veteran, period.
Mhm.
You either a master sergeant or you're a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Master sergeant, you deal with DOD, Department of Defense. Veteran, you're dealing with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Two totally different departments.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is we have to stand where we have to stand so people aren't putting out the wrong messages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I'm simply saying that the service that's been given by everybody, whether you're talking about a first responder, we're not just here at the Raymond Hall Show talking about just people who served in active military service. We're talking about first responders. We're talking about mothers who raise children. We're talking about teachers who teach. We're talking preachers who preach. Give some service, because every part of that service is a building block for the nation. Mm-hmm. Okay? The weakest and the most underserved community in this nation, that's where the true strength of the nation is. Where does a rope break? At its weakest
point. Right. Yeah.
Where does a chain break? At its weakest point.
Link.
Okay. So Mr. Joe Freeman Sr., he recognized that. Yeah. You at the Salvation Army, you recognize that. You working with the Vietnam veterans, you recognize that. Mm-hmm. Me, it was quite simple. I had a choice. I had a heart transplant. Am I going to use this new heart?
There you go.
Right.
Fresh start.
Fresh start. Mm-hmm. Am I going to be angry and shake my fist at yesterday, or am I going to smile and welcome today? Tomorrow. I'm not going to play with tomorrow. I'm just going to say, God, thank you for today. Now, what can I do today?
That's right.
To make a difference.
Life will test us all with these questions.
Yes.
And it really proves who you are.
Okay.
When you show how you answer that question.
Yeah. Now talk to us about 3 things that you would like people to know about the Salvation Army.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about this topic, the whole reason we're called the Salvation Army was because back in the 1800s, we were serving the veterans by way of serving the homeless. Okay. And if you think about it, so this is the 1800s, right?
Right.
And so people are being discharged. Maybe they have drug or alcohol issues. For whatever reason, they're in poverty or they're living on the streets.
Right.
And what you do is you ditch all of the stuff that you can't carry with you.
Exactly.
And you keep the sturdiest clothes, and those are the ones you wear. So, of course, it's their old military uniforms that they still had, the sturdy clothes. So we would have these events, these like tent meetings all together, and you'd look in the crowd, and there'd be tons of people with military uniforms on. And it's not a military event.
Right.
It's a homeless services event, right?
Right.
So a reporter came in and wrote a newspaper article. It was called The Christian Mission at the time, in the mid-1800s. Okay. A reporter came in and described it as a Salvation Army because of all the sea of uniforms, right? And so our founder, he took a look at that and he circled it in the newspaper. He goes, you know what? This is our new name, Salvation Army. So since our very beginnings, 160 years ago, it's always been about serving veterans and serving the homeless.
Okay.
We really adopted that, and so we still wear the uniforms, and we have ranks, like I'm a captain.
Right.
And it's all just so that we remember our true core purpose. It is to serve the needy. Right. And that's a message that I would get out there, that's who the Salvation Army is.
Okay.
And I would invite people, if you're not sure where to start in service, and you want to get involved somewhere, you could join a commission like Richard. over here. You could find ways to get involved on the civic side of things, but if you wanted to get involved on the nonprofit side of things, the Salvation Army is very welcoming to volunteers who want to get involved in service, don't know exactly where to start. We'll get you started. Don't worry about that. We got plenty of work for you to do.
Plenty of things for
and we can tailor-made that service to who you are and what you have to offer.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So now, if they wanted to do that, how do they reach you? How do they contact you?
There's Salvation Army units throughout Los Angeles.
Okay.
I mean, we're everywhere in LA. We're up in the Valley. We are, in Compton. We're in Inglewood.
Right.
We're in Long Beach. We're in Torrance. We're in Glendale. So reach out to your local Salvation Army.
Okay.
And find out what kind of volunteer opportunities they have for you.
Okay. All right. And growing the Vietnam Era Veterans Association. Now I know you're the commissioner, but you're also a member of you're a board member.
I'm a board member of 1024 chapter of Vietnam Veterans of America out of Orange County.
Okay. Now how did that get started?
Oh, it got started by a good friend of mine that I met at the Long Beach VA. He was a member. He was a member of the chapter, and he took me out, and I was introduced to him. And at that particular time, I wasn't affiliated with any organization, veterans organization.
Right.
And I liked the people, and we kind of connected. And I've been involved with them for over close to 8 to 9 years now. Okay. And it's a very well run organization.
Now, when do you all meet?
We meet once a month on Lemon Street at the American Legion Post in Orange County.
Okay. Okay.
We meet once a month, and it's usually around the 15th of each month.
Okay.
Okay, we schedule a meeting around then.
And if somebody wanted to reach out,
if they want to, they could reach out. I have my cards. They could reach out to me, but. It's I've talked to a lot of people, and they say that they really don't want to drive that far to go to a meeting. There's plenty. There's a chapter in Long Beach. Right. If you want to get active, you could easily find a chapter in your area. Yeah. There was a chapter that just brought the wall to Gardena.
Yeah, I went.
Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another chapter, and it's located in the city of Gardena. You could call your city council or whatever and ask for the nearest Vietnam chapter.
I went there, and I had mixed emotions. Matter of fact, it was in an open field, and
yes, it was right out there.
I couldn't breathe. That was it was the strangest thing. I just couldn't breathe. It was some things that I've left alone since.
We never talked about it when we came back from Vietnam. I know that it was something that you couldn't talk to just anybody about it because nobody understood. That's the main thing that has happened over the years. As we've gotten older, and these organizations, the Vietnam, the American Legion, that have those Vietnam veterans and stuff, most of it, if you walk up to 90% of them, their stories are so similar. They were isolated. Okay, they had no one to talk to. No one understood what they had gone through. So many of them, the ones that didn't just give it all up, commit suicide or whatever, they were, if they had a family, if they had the religion, they were able to get a job. But what they did when they got the job was they threw themselves into it. We found out that the best workers were people that were suffering with PTSD from Vietnam because they were so focused. Yeah. They were so dedicated because, they did not want to take the chance of being isolated and having it come fleshing right back on them.
Well, I call mine doors. I just don't let people put their hands on my door and open doors because you know how the clinicians are. They'll have you to talk about something and then they'll move on. Then the next person will come in and, in other words, some of the more seasoned professionals know how to close those doors in a therapy session, know how to open them up
and close
talk
them.
about things, and know how to close them.
Right.
But when you open them up and leave them open, you got to remember, now my day has all of this open stuff, and that's not fair to the people who I run into.
Oh, goodness, yes. I got stories of, you know.
They have no.
I had lunch with my boss right after a 2-hour therapy, and oh my goodness, the oversharing, the total inappropriateness. I was just like, whoa, you know.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying there's a place where you can remember how empowering your service was. I had a colonel, and this colonel will walk off of one of those sea stallions, that C-53 sea stallions. And he impressed me so, because we were a small unit where I was stationed, and I'm going, sir, you better be careful. You better get down. His thing was, you better not shoot at me.
Do you know who I am?
He didn't say that. He's just a full bird colonel. He wasn't saying you better not. You bet not shoot at me. And what he was showing us, his troop, is that's wasted energy. You stay focused on what you got to do. And the people who make sure that you do what you're going to do what they're going to do. Look up around you. You got these Cobras, you got these gunships and everything, and it was, no, you're not going to shoot at me. Okay? So what I'm saying is you've got to get a certain amount of bravado. Now, are you going to lose? Of course. I've lost some people that are so dear to me that it scares me, because it's hard for me to relate somebody dying off on me and somebody just saying, I'm gone. It's still, you see what I'm saying? It's still a separation. So PTSD has one of those things that it alters our lives, it alters our behaviors, it alters our understanding. But once you get an understanding, hey, it's one thing that I got that nobody can take away. You can't remove it from the record. You can't pour coffee on it and it'll go away. It stands as it is, that I gave service, and I gave service with dignity and honor. That you can stand on. And when you recognize that and stand on that, then no matter what's bothering you, a toenail hurting is like PTSD to me. A headache is like PTSD to me. Okay, I got a problem, but I still got a job to do.
Still got a job to do, right.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to get into the medical side. I have no education on that side, but what I do know is this. Remember how when you had to move, you found the strength to move? You remember? When you had to move, when you had to grab somebody with you, you found the strength to move and grab. So here with PTSD and things like that, you have to move. Okay, and that's the thing that moves me. Okay, so now we were talking about 3 things that you wanted people to know. I don't know why Raymond goes off on these tangents, y'all.
Well, here's maybe a lighthearted story for you, because there's lots of different ways of reaching people.
Okay.
So go back to World War I, and I'll tell you the end of the story first. The end of the story is U.S. military vets from World War I came back home, and they were looking for donut shops that did not exist yet, because they got hooked on donuts while they were over there in the trenches.
Okay.
That's the end of the story. Now, the beginning of the story is that our national commander of the Salvation Army reached out to the U.S. military commanders in Europe during World War I, and they said, what can we do to help right now? And the military commanders said, if you could send your people into the trenches to be alongside our soldiers and give them comfort, give them a sense of connection and interactivity, that would be a good work. So the Salvation Army sent women over there to work in the trenches with the men.
Wow.
And the women made donuts. They used the actual helmets, and they would heat up the frying oil on a fire in the trenches and make these donuts and give them to the men. And they were known as the Donut Lassies. This is a huge part of Salvation Army history, and it's really a story of how there are so many different ways to reach not just veterans, but any people who are going through distress. So what we gave them was donuts, and every donut was a taste of someplace else. Someplace that was not this muddy, dirty, cold trench with bullets flying. It was a taste of home. And so then when they came back home looking for donuts, what they were doing with every single bite was restoring a sense of themselves and a sense of themselves here at home, where they had comfort, where they had connection, where they had a pretty young lady who was there with a smile and service. Those women who went over there and did that work, they did an amazing work of, intervention. Intervention before things got out of control in these young men's minds. Just think about the value of stepping in when somebody's about to enter crisis. Being able to step in and help.
I'm going to remember that one.
That's what we're about. That's what we're all about.
Really,
what is the one thing you want people to remember? We've got a few minutes left.
Basically, you don't get this type of feeling unless you serve others. About 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to Los Alamitos, and we sent off a light infantry brigade that was headed to Afghanistan. And I can remember looking at those young faces of those young men. Many of them had done 2 and 3 tours. And they were so eager to go back and finish the job with their buddies. And it kind of reflected on what, when I was in Vietnam, it was we did everything for each other because we didn't know the outcome. We didn't know 9 times out of 10 where we're going to go, what we're going to do, where we're going to take this place and we're going to give it right back, how many people are going to get lost. So we became numb. But I've learned over the years as I've gotten older that the feelings that you get when you help others is unbelievable. And if you want relief, you want a sense of purpose, go out and do something in the community. Go out and help someone. Even if it's a neighbor, go take out, you know what I'm talking about, an older person that you might, go out there and ask them, can I take your trash out or something? Well,
we do know that service is what has built this nation. You can look through communities, you can look through this nation from shore to shore and border to border. It's service. People have given service in a myriad of ways. I'm still thinking about this donut. Because you taught me some things in a number of ways. I may have to join the Salvation Army
to get the donut.
Not the donut. Just, it's. I was trying to think of an organization that has a equal or greater history of service than the Salvation Army. And when you mentioned 1860. I can't think of an organization that goes that far back except for, Red Cross, those.
Salvation Army was the first organization that confronted drug and alcohol addiction. And made
and
it
I think you
a
all
formal
were
process.
who was it that was the forerunner, who was it that advocated for the Department of Veterans Affairs? I can't remember whether it was the Salvation Army or someone else, but there was an organization that was responsible for advocating for veterans and the furtherance of the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Really?
Yeah. Well, this has been a wonderful day. We're just about out of time. It's been a service kind of day. It's just a remarkable thing to have 3 Marines or veterans that served in the
Marine Corps.
And I want to thank our young guest that's in the studio. I won't call any names, but we
my
have
daughter's
a young
out
guest.
here. Yeah.
Yes, so we're grateful for our studio guests. To all of those people that are in the various hospitals around the country, especially those veteran hospitals, we want to wish you a speedy recovery.
And say thank you.
And say thank you. And
Yes.
for all of the people that took care of me while I was up there, I think I was on the 4th or 5th floor, I don't remember, but all of the nurses and all of the nurses' aides and just even the people that was responsible for making sure my room was clean. You guys and ladies did a phenomenal job. Thank you. So we want to thank also Mr. John Pointer, who is the executive director of the California Senior Legislature, for reaching out and checking on me, and for Laveda Theus as well, Angie and Renee and Miss Stevens, all of you all. I'm just extremely grateful that you all had a hand in getting me back on my feet. Next week we had to move some things around because last week I was in the hospital and we were going to do a show on housing, on homelessness and housing, and we were going to feature seniors. So we're going to see if we can make that show happen next week. We've been working diligently behind the scenes with talking to people about what's going on with our youth and the children in school and what's going on with them on a number of issues. So we're looking forward to bringing you that information. We want to thank Morris Media Studios, Felicia Morris and Johnny Morris, her dad, for all of the things that they do. Our studio engineer, who's always on top of things, we want to thank him as well. It's a wonderful thing to say thank you. Mr. Freeman introduced something in my life that he said nobody ever told him thank you, and it has just stayed with me. Make sure you tell someone thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you have an understanding of what they have done to make it possible for you to do the things that you're doing. There's power in just saying thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to give you two, the 20 seconds to say whatever you want to say, and we're going to close it out.
All right.
Okay. What do you want, 20 seconds?
Oh, I just want to say thank you to you.
Okay.
Everything happens for a purpose. When we met yesterday, I want to say thank you for the opportunity for me to get up and explain some of the organizations that I'm involved with, some of the work that I'm doing, and a lot of them don't get to hear the words thank you. Okay. So I just want to say to the Veterans Voice groups at the Long Beach VA, thank you.
All right.
I want to say to the Vietnam Veterans of America, Post 1024 in Orange County, thank you.
Okay.
I want to say to the Nicotine Anonymous group out there at the Kaiser facility in Carson, I want to say thank you.
Okay. Josh.
All right. Next time you listen to the song Strawberry Fields Forever, what you're listening to is John Lennon's recollections of when he used to run across the field and play with the kids at the Strawberry Fields Orphanage in England.
Wow.
And that's what that song's about. So these times of service can leave a long-lasting imprint on people's lives.
Okay. Thank you. And that's it for us. Thank you for joining the Raymond Hall Show. We will be here next week, given the blessings of God. And with that, we are going to say thank you to you for tuning in to the Raymond Hall Show. Tell your family, tell your friends, join us. Have a good evening.